A lot of men have grown up with that traditional view. That's how their dads did. Their sole role in the family is to provide, and that's it, and it kind of ends there. Whereas now, we as their wives, their partners are like, hang on, I'm also providing, so you need to also pull pull your socks up in this area when it comes to raising our children, being hands-on. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. Please remember to subscribe, hit the notification bell below, and follow me on my social media platforms. So yeah, over the years I've had a lot of comments or questions that come to me, sort of maybe noticing people mention that, my husband Kev is such a great dad, and he's so hands-on, and I love sharing sort of tips on that, because that definitely didn't happen by accident. A lot of women don't feel very supported by their partners. Women are under so much pressure, and with everything that's happened the past couple of years, especially division of labor in the house is not equal. We can't just leave it like that. Yeah, well, the women's place is this and the men's place is that. And I know that traditionally that is how a lot of our parents grew up and our grandparents and things like that, but times have changed, and a lot of us are also working. We're also taking on more than our traditional roles, and so something needs to shift. This is my opinion, that I do think that men in general need to step up, need to do more, need to be more involved. But something that I've noticed as well, because it's something that actually happened in my marriage as well, so not enough to just say, hey, you need to step up. Some guys need a little bit of help to get there. Fatherhood, by fatherhood, I'm talking about the sort of hands-on dad version of fatherhood hasn't really been ingrained in a lot of guys' minds. A lot of men have grown up with that traditional view. That's how their dads did. Their sole role in the family is to provide, and that's it, and it kind of ends there. Whereas now, we as their wives, their partners are like, hang on, I'm also providing, so you need to also pull pull your socks up in this area when it comes to raising our children, being hands-on. I wanted to just share some things that I've personally found to really help, and if I'm able to help him, then it benefits me and it benefits the whole family. So I just wanted to share 4 things to help him become a more hands-on dad. If there was a time in our marriage where we were not getting on, I just want to put that out there. We were just kind of doing what we needed to do. This was after I had Kai, and so that first year was really rough. We go into it a little bit more in this video, so check out that video if you're interested in hearing his point of view as well, which I think is very important in all of this, obviously. Expectations. Everybody comes into marriages with a certain set of expectations, but a lot of us don't necessarily express them until something goes wrong, or until somebody doesn't meet those expectations. Then we're like, hey, you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And so that definitely happened a lot in that first year of parenthood with me and Kev. This is actually a huge tip that I gave one of my closest friends who recently got engaged. She was just like, give me a tip about marriage. So I was just like, look, this is what I'm going to tell you, because I know you want kids. If we do talk about marriage, we might touch on a couple of things here and there, but we don't necessarily share with our significant others what we're expecting of them as a father, and them for us as a mother. And I'm talking about the specific things, not abstract thing oh, I'm expecting my husband to love our child. It's okay, he can love your child, but he can also say, I'm not going to change any nappies. I know some women who have said my husband, he will change nappies, but he refuses to do the poopy nappies. Refuses. That is a no-go. Wouldn't you have wanted to know that up front before the baby came and before you sleep deprived, you're healing from birth and all of that, to know that you would have to be the sole nappy changer? If you're okay with that, I said up front, I'm just can't just be me. Chores around the house. If you don't have a helper or somebody, a family member around who can cook for you, who's actually going to do that? Is it going to be 100% you? And if you're not comfortable with that, you need to speak up about it. You need to actually be very specific about who is going to handle what, because I'm telling you now, by the time you have the baby, you're not going to have the time and the mental capacity to be discussing that division of labor thing. If your husband can't cook, for example, and you're left to do all of the meal prepping and cooking, can you do the laundry? Can he clean up? Can he vacuum? All of those things still need to happen, and even more so now that you have a baby. By the way, first-time parents, babies go through crazy amount of laundry. It's insane. Someone needs to be on top of that. Okay, the second way that you can help is by being specific on how he can help. This for me was a huge game changer. There was this time when I had a live and we were talking about marriage during like the past couple of years, and a lot of the women were just like, you know, they're frustrated with their husbands because they don't help around the house or they don't do enough. And I simply just asked them like, okay, so have you told him this? He's like, yeah, I've told him. And I also said that to Kev, and he's like, you need to tell me how can I help? What can I actually do to help? I think I'm helping when I'm doing A, B, and C, but you're actually judging me on the things that I'm not doing, but I don't even know that I'm supposed to be doing that stuff. So it was a huge sort of like light bulb moment that a lot of us as women, we grow up reading between the lines. We have a very different way of communicating with each other. A lot of the times as women, we're able to have a whole conversation with each other, but the words that we're saying and what we're actually meaning are two different things. And that's something women to woman we get. Men are not like that. And I know I'm generalizing, okay? I'm definitely generalizing this on every guy, but I'm just saying for the sake of this video and also just what I've seen in my marriage, men are very direct in a lot of things that they do, in their communication in general. At least my husband, he's just like, you can't just say like, I need you to help me. You need to be specific in the sense of, babe, can you please take out the nappy bin? That's how specific he needed it to be. Now I know. At first it's like, do I really have to? How exhausting. It can be exhausting. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna be real with you. But what's more exhausting is it's not being specific, expecting him to know what I'm talking about, and then he doesn't do what I was expecting him to do. Then we get into a fight, and then I'm like, I'm just gonna do it myself. But here I am doing this chore myself, and I'm like, I'm the only one who's doing this. You know, like now I know for sure. But back then I was just like, oh, okay. So something I like to use an example is actually designate tasks to him. Kev was so good at swaddling. He's the master swaddler. He's able to do all these like flips and the tucks and the what, and the baby stays in the swaddle. Whereas when I do it, blanket just falls apart and the baby's like, nah, and like, yeah. So when I saw how great he was at doing, I'm like, babe, that's your thing, you know, from now on, you are swaddling the baby. There's something like about it that he actually really enjoyed. I think it's because he knew that he was good at it. Definitely something that brings me on to the next point. We as women need to let them be dads. I do believe more dads than we think really do want to be involved and be more hands-on, but a lot of the times, because a lot of our value as a woman is placed on being a mother, we sort of take that on ourselves. It's a very complicated thing. It's very back and forth because we get overwhelmed by it because it's a lot, but we feel like, oh, but if I give that to the dad to do, then what value do I bring to the table? You know, what am I doing? There's so much that we kind of almost hog in a way, and I definitely blame like society for that and tradition in general, that we kind of take that on ourselves. It becomes very difficult for our partners, our husbands, to get in there and actually prove their worth as well, especially when we're first-time moms. The majority of us, if not all of us, have no clue what we're doing. Why is my baby crying? What does he need? And all those things that can only be learned by trying and failing and trying again and failing, and then eventually you get to know your baby. And the only way we do that is through time. That's not really given to dads, really. I mean, just look at like maternity leave versus paternity leave. It's a vast difference. And because we get that time, there's that expectation from society, from our families, that we would know the baby more. It's only because we spend more time with the baby. So of course, after a couple of weeks or whatever, a couple of months, you would be the go-to person to figure out why the baby's crying, because you've just spent more time with the baby. That becomes the default. Whereas if you carve out that time and you almost relinquish a little bit of that control over the baby and the baby's schedule, how things are done and all of that, to your partner, and let him own that, that really makes a huge difference. Really benefited all of us in the end. Kai and Kev were able to bond better. I was able to rest a bit. Me and Kev also, we were able to kind of see each other's like what we're bringing to the table when it came to parenthood parenthood. So it just became more of a win-win situation. I definitely want to just mention that this step needs a lot of patience. There will be times where your husband doesn't do things the same way you do. Bath time, for example, in our house is very different if I'm doing it, if Kev's doing it. So in those situations, it really helps me to keep in mind, as long as it gets done. Like, done is better than perfect. As long as the kids end up napping, as long as the kids end up clean from their bath, as long as the kids end up fed, it actually doesn't matter how he does it. He doesn't have to do it the same way that I do. And let him have that. Let him have dad's way of doing things. I think that's also really, really sweet that, you know, your kids also know that daddy's a little bit different and they might have preferences, but at the end of the day, it's really important for them to know that if mommy's not around, daddy can do it, and vice versa. The more allowance you give him, the more confident he's going to become. And so that leads me on to my last point: praise him. I know this is something that I remember having a conversation with my friend, and she's just like, well, why do I have to why do I have to praise him? For me, I'm like, why not? Look, at the end of the day, you know your husband, you know your partner better than anybody. If he doesn't respond well to praise, then cool. It really helped in my marriage. He wanted to know that he was doing well. This is a territory that traditionally is very female-like centered. The expectations are so low for men. So I think when they're in our territory doing something, it helps. When I saw that he was really good at swaddling, for example, I'm like, babe, that is so good. Like, you're so good at this. And he was more likely to do it again. But the times before that, when I might tell him, like, I might criticize him, or I might say, you're doing it wrong, or, you know, I actually do it this way, he'd just be like, you know, I'm not going to do it. So rather than focusing on the things that he does wrong, maybe focus on the things that he does right. If he finds a way to do it where your child is still safe and everything's okay, a little praise here and there really goes a long way. And saying thank you sometimes as well. And I've noticed the more I do that, the more praise I get, and the more thank yous that I give out, the more thank yous I receive. Even when it's stuff that's like, but he should be doing this. Yes, I should be waking up to breastfeed the baby, but it means something when my husband the next morning says, thanks for doing that, babe. Thanks for handling that. I don't know. It just, it helps. So yeah, those are my 4 tips on how to help him become a better dad. I hope you found these helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and share it with a mama friend in your life or a dad friend in your life. Leave a comment below. What is the dynamic in your family, in your relationship at the moment? Do you wish that your partner was a bit more hands-on? Do you wish he was more hands-off? And something that I definitely noticed, because I have 2 kids now and a 3rd on the way, is that if you get this sort of dynamic right, or as close to right as possible, then it will naturally become that way for the 2nd kid and 3rd kid. Hit the notification bell below for more videos. Please remember to subscribe. Follow me on my social media platforms, and I will see you in the next video.